An unidentified jet breached U.S. airspace. Fighters locked on. Orders were clear: shoot to kill. But just before the missiles fired, one voice crackled over the radio. A forgotten call sign, Iron Phoenix. And everything stopped. This story is of a legendary pilot erased from history, and the one moment her voice changed everything. If you love military stories filled with honor, mystery, and redemption, tell us where you're watching from. We're just getting started. Over the Bering Sea, the sky was an endless sheet of gray steel. Below it, wind howled across frigid waters. At 42,000 feet, two F-35s screamed across the sky, their sensors sharp, their payloads hot, and their orders simple. Intercept. Identify. Neutralize if hostile. Captain Ryan Hale squinted through his visor, locked onto the glint just ahead on radar. It moved low, erratic, and fast, unmarked, silent, running without a transponder. Not Russian. Not commercial. Not American. It had no reason to be there, and yet it sliced through restricted airspace like it belonged there. Eyes on, Hale said over the secure comms. Bogey is flying low, skimming thermal altitudes. Confirming delta wing silhouette. Not matching any current NATO pattern. Closest analog is, hell, it looks like a prototype. Behind him, Lieutenant Jason Torch Mercer held wingman position. Fresh from flight school, top of his class, with instincts that today would matter more than training. Command, we're 30 seconds out, Hale radioed to AWACS. Weapons green? A beat of static. Then the AWACS operator replied, flat and clipped. Weapons green. ROE level 2. If target fails to respond, you are clear to engage. Jason's fingers hovered over his control panel, thumb near the weapon arm switch. His HUD locked onto the shape darting ahead, sleek, almost ghost-like. It didn't have the aggressive presence of a bomber or the chaos of a hijacked craft. It was flying with intent. Purpose. Like it had done this before. Then, the voice. Crackling through an outdated UHF emergency channel, one not used in over a decade, a woman's voice sliced through the noise. Iron Phoenix requesting corridor access. Do not fire. I repeat, this is Iron Phoenix on Vector 920. I am not hostile. Jason froze. For a split second, the cockpit was silent. His hand pulled back from the switch. Captain Hale didn't respond. Not right away. Neither did AWACS. The call sign echoed in Jason's mind like a thunderclap. Iron Phoenix. That wasn't just any name. That was a ghost. A myth they talked about in officer school. The woman who'd disappeared over hostile airspace 2 decades ago, after being blamed for a Black Ops mission gone wrong. No remains. No crash site. Just a name that disappeared from every system, scrubbed like she never existed. Did she just say Iron Phoenix? Jason asked, voice low. Probably a spoof signal, Hale snapped. Jammers could be mimicking a known call sign. Stick to protocol. She knew the corridor vector. That's not public intel. Torch, arm your damn missiles. Jason didn't move. His eyes stayed locked on the bogey, now starting to rise in altitude slowly, deliberately. Not evasive. Not panicked. A climb that almost invited pursuit. AWACS, confirm ID. Repeat, target just transmitted a legacy call sign over UHF. Possible allied, repeat, possible allied. The AWACS operator came back on. We are not tracking any authorized flights in that zone. Legacy call signs are invalid. Maintain ROE. You are clear to fire. Jason's jaw tightened. His heart pounded. He could see the target now with his eyes, not just radar. It was unlike anything he'd seen before. Delta-winged, but scarred, with faded paint and a canopy that had seen years of weathering. This wasn't a fresh aircraft off a hostile line. This was a ghost. Torch, you're dragging. Arm up, Hale barked. But Jason wasn't listening anymore. He clicked over to the UHF manually, something they were never trained to do mid-mission. He flicked the toggle and spoke into the old channel. Iron Phoenix, identify yourself. Who are you? A pause. Then, the voice returned. Calm. Controlled. Tired. Lieutenant Mercer. This is Major Tessa Quinn. USAF, retired. Former command pilot, Spectre program. I know what you've been told. But if you fire on me, you'll be shooting the only friendly aircraft standing between you and what's coming. Jason's blood ran cold. She knew my name, he muttered. What the hell are you doing? Hale shouted in the squadron channel. She's baiting you. She's dead. This is PSYOPs crap. Jason's mind raced. Spectre program? That was the off-book stealth initiative that got canned after the Gulf. Classified beyond top secret. The name Iron Phoenix had been mentioned in a lecture once, then redacted from the slides. Command, I recommend delay on weapons release. Pilot is transmitting internal protocol. She cited Spectre. Repeating, target claims U.S. origin. Silence. Then AWACS responded, colder now. Lieutenant Mercer, your authority is revoked. Final fire authority lies with Captain Hale. Obey chain of command. Jason looked up at the shrinking gap between them and the unknown aircraft. Iron Phoenix, he said into the old channel. What are you doing here? Saving your base, she answered. But I need 60 seconds. Don't let them pull the trigger. Hale's F-35 accelerated ahead. Jason reached up and flipped his weapons back to safe. Torch, what the hell are you doing? She's not the threat, Jason said. We are, if we fire first. The three aircraft soared in deadly silence, closing fast toward a decision that could trigger war, or unravel a truth buried for 2 decades. And deep in the sky, the Iron Phoenix flew straight toward danger, one final time. In the command center at Elmendorf Air Force Base, tension cut through the air like shrapnel. Rows of monitors tracked the intercept live. On one screen, 3 dots, 2 blue, 1 red, closing fast. On another, infrared feeds from the F-35s, showing the lone Delta-winged aircraft climbing steadily, maintaining perfect control. Colonel Nora Brandt, overseeing the operation, leaned forward, eyes narrowed at the name flashing in the communication logs. Call sign, Iron Phoenix. Her lips thinned. That's not possible, she muttered. Behind her, an intelligence officer scrolled rapidly through archived identifiers. Sir, Iron Phoenix isn't active. Last known use was 20 years ago. Gulf region. Pilot presumed Kia. Brandt didn't answer. In the sky, Lieutenant Jason Torch Mercer trailed just behind Captain Hale, his hands tight on the stick, sweat lining his brow despite the cabin chill. Command has revoked my authority, he said quietly over his private comms. I'm being ordered to defer to Hale. He wants to take the shot. On the old UHF channel, the woman's voice, calm, firm, came again. Because they can't afford the truth getting out. Jason's stomach nodded. Her voice didn't waver. No panic. No desperation. Only conviction. If you're who you say you are, why now? He asked. Why come back after all this time? Because what's coming won't give anyone a second chance. She paused, as if calculating how much time she had left. I didn't disappear, Lieutenant. I was erased. 20 years ago. Fallujah. Dust choked the desert sky. A younger Tessa Quinn climbed out of a black-painted stealth jet, her flight suit streaked with oil, her lips split from a hard landing. The mission had gone sideways. Not because of her flying, she'd nailed the insert and evac. But someone had fed false intel to their team on the ground. American soldiers walked into a trap. She reported it. And was told to stay silent. You want to be a good soldier, Major? Then take the fall, said General Ross Kincaid, then a rising star at the Pentagon. I was just the pilot. I followed orders, she said, voice low. And those orders never officially existed. You want to keep your wings, or make this ugly for everyone? She chose neither. She disappeared. Back in the present, Jason's mind reeled. He glanced at his secondary monitor, where encrypted telemetry from the unknown aircraft was now being transmitted to his system. Data flickered, black box readings, engine diagnostics, structural telemetry. It was a mix of new and very old tech, but the coding signature was unmistakably American. Jason patched the signal into his auxiliary storage and locked it under an off-grid encryption he'd only used in simulations. Then he spoke again. If you really are Tessa Quinn. I heard about you. In a lecture. Just a name on a redacted slide. That's all I was allowed to be, she replied. They buried my file, reassigned my flight logs to ghost IDs. They scrubbed every trace of Spectre from public records. Spectre? Jason asked. Experimental low observable recon and strike wing. Ultra covert. Never meant for long-term deployment. We tested aircraft that were ahead of their time, and ethics. Jason shook his head. So why fly into U.S. airspace now? Because one of those prototypes, the autonomous drone we scrapped after I went dark, is back. And someone's using it. Wrong. Where? Here, she said. They've hijacked its control node. I'm trying to stop it before it hits your base. Jason's heart kicked up a notch. Do you have proof? You're looking at it. Why do you think I had to come myself? In the command center, Colonel Brandt stared at the data flooding into the AWACS backup system. She's transmitting a full telemetry archive. Heat signatures matched the long-range drone pattern intercepted last week off the Aleutian chain. Her aide looked confused. But that report was filed under hostile foreign incursion. No, Brandt said. It was filed under unknown origin. And now she's telling us who built it. So, she's trying to help. She's trying to stop something. And we're about to shoot her down. Brandt stepped forward and activated the priority override to the comms channel. But it was too late. Captain Hale clicked his weapons hot. Target is still transmitting unauthorized signals. She's dragging us off course. This is classic misdirection. I have a clean shot. Jason's voice came through, firmer this time. You take that shot, and we might never know the truth. She's not running. She's climbing, drawing line of sight. That's how you transmit to a satellite relay. You're getting played, Torch. She's using every trick in the book. Jason exhaled. Or she wrote the book. Inside her battered aircraft, Tessa Quinn kept her hands steady on the stick. The interface flickered, patched with makeshift cabling and modified HUD overlays. She had barely kept this thing flying, let alone undetected for as long as she had. She glanced at the time. 30 seconds. Mercer, she said softly, do you believe in ghosts? No, ma'am. Good. Then maybe we still have a future. Her fingers danced across the console. The encrypted data package, the final piece, was sent. Transmission complete, she whispered. Who's your target? Jason asked. Not a target, she replied. A system. I just lit it up. Back at Elmendorf, alarms flared across the satellite tracking screens. A dormant drone node, buried deep in the Alaskan wilderness and long believed deactivated, suddenly pinged active. Just as quickly, it began to melt down. Whatever Quinn had just triggered, it worked. In the air, the red dot on Jason's HUD shifted. No longer marked unknown. The system updated. Aircraft ID confirmed, USAF experimental, ghost class. Status, declassified. Operator, Quinn, Tessa. Jason's eyes widened. Oh my God. She's real. And she wasn't done yet. Major Tessa Quinn never liked mirrors. Not because of vanity, she didn't care much for makeup, fashion, or the lines that had begun carving her face, but because they reminded her of what used to be. A woman built for the sky, grounded by politics, forgotten by design. She sat at the edge of her bed in a modest bungalow outside Flagstaff, Arizona, staring out the window at the morning light. The desert had a strange way of feeling vast and confined all at once, much like her own life after the war. A photograph rested on the nightstand. Faded. Framed in brushed aluminum. Four pilots stood in flight suits, arms around each other in post-mission giddiness. Her, Topper Vance, Eileen Red Hawk Jameson, and Travis Hale, her wingman and best friend. All gone now. Vance in the Gulf, Red Hawk to cancer, Travis, well, Travis had never been found. They were Spectre Squadron. Black Ops. Eyes-only missions, no press, no medals, no mistakes allowed. No history. That was the deal. And when it ended, she didn't just lose her wings, she lost her name. Iron Phoenix was dead. On paper, she never existed. The knock at the door was sharp. 3 raps. A pause. 2 more. Military. Tessa slid her hand behind the bookshelf and pulled the Glock she kept in the hidden panel. No paranoia. Just habit. She eased toward the door, staying out of the window's line of sight. Another knock. Major Quinn? A man's voice. Name's Lieutenant Dawson. I'm with NORAD. She opened the door with the gun pointed low but ready. He was young, mid-20s, maybe. Cropped blonde hair, a pressed uniform that looked like it hadn't been broken in yet. He held out his ID slowly. She checked it, lowered her weapon, and stepped aside. Inside, she said. He entered without protest, eyes scanning the room like he'd been trained. His gaze lingered on the photo for a moment before he faced her. We had an incident yesterday. I know, she said. I heard the scanners. Scrambled jets out of Holloman. Thought it was a drill. It wasn't. We had an unidentified aircraft heading straight for restricted airspace. Everyone thought it was hostile. Tessa's expression didn't change, but her stomach tightened. He continued. All flight data said it was older tech. Not transponding. Not responding to hails. And then, he paused. One of our pilots heard a call sign. Iron Phoenix. Her face stayed unreadable, but her silence was louder than any admission. Dawson sat forward. Ma'am. That call sign hasn't been used in over 20 years. You were presumed Kia after Operation Night Raptor. Records were sealed. You were erased. But someone out there used it. That jet disappeared before we could intercept. But it wasn't a ghost. She exhaled slowly. Someone's trying to dig up the bones. Or they're using your name to start something. She walked to the window, arms crossed. The sun had fully risen, lighting the edges of the red cliffs in gold. Iron Phoenix was only used on one frequency, she said. Encrypted beyond standard protocol. Spectre Squadron protocols. Dawson frowned. Spectre Squadron isn't even acknowledged in the archives. Exactly. She turned to him. So who in your command authorized this visit? He hesitated. No one. Her eyes narrowed. I was on comms yesterday. I heard the voice. It wasn't synthetic. It was calm, female, American. It sounded like you. She gave a tight, humorless smile. I've been here, Lieutenant. I haven't flown since my discharge. But someone's using your signature, your call sign, and your flight pattern. We think they're trying to send a message. Tessa crossed the room, pulling open an old chest. Inside were mementos, patches, mission tokens, maps, and a flight helmet she hadn't touched in decades. She lifted the helmet gently. Spectre Squadron had enemies, not just foreign adversaries, but people in our own Pentagon who didn't like the corruption we exposed. Like what? Backdoor drone programs. Covert refueling bases in Allied territory. Things no one wanted on paper. We burned a few careers just by doing our jobs. And the mission that ended it all? Tessa set the helmet down, face unreadable. Night Raptor, she said. Operation was a success. But the debrief wasn't. Dawson waited. She said no more. Back at NORAD command, Captain Ellie Morgan stood with her arms crossed, watching the radar playback. She was the one who had almost authorized the strike. If not for a single F-35 pilot pausing at the last second, they would have shot first and asked questions never. Why would someone use that call sign, she muttered to herself. Her second-in-command, Sergeant Ben Rivas, glanced over. Maybe it was her. Maybe she's back. Morgan shook her head. Quinn vanished after exposing a top-secret drone scandal. The kind of thing you don't walk away from. Rivas looked again at the intercepted audio file. A woman's voice. Calm. Precise. Iron Phoenix, copy. Breaking formation. Do not engage. Do not engage. Morgan stared at the waveform on the screen. I want everything we have on Spectre Squadron, she said. I don't care what's classified. Someone just resurrected a ghost. And I want to know why. Back in Arizona, Tessa locked the chest. Her voice was quiet. If someone's flying under my name, then they're baiting me. And they know I can't resist a good hunt. Dawson asked, are you going after them? Tessa didn't answer. She didn't have to. The debrief room was colder than the sky above Greenland, and twice as tense. Captain Rafe Dalton leaned against the wall, arms crossed, jaw tight. His helmet sat untouched on the table, its HUD still blinking with the last recorded data from the intercept. Across from him, Lieutenant Isla Park paced like a caged tiger, her tablet clutched tight in her gloved hand. None of this makes sense, Isla muttered. She was inside the restricted corridor. Squawked no IFF. Took a locking posture over civilian grid. I don't care if she called herself Santa Claus, we were cleared to engage. And yet we didn't, Rafe said flatly, his eyes locked on the closed door. Because of a name. A ghost call sign no one's heard in 20 years. Park whirled around. Because you didn't fire. You hesitated. Rafe's voice dropped, quiet and sharp. She said Iron Phoenix, Isla. You know what that means. Every Academy graduate hears that story. Classified or not, it's legend. Legend doesn't stop a potential defector in a foreign airframe. She threw the tablet on the table, the screen lighting up with radar snapshots and audio logs. She matched no known transponder. Her craft was retrofitted, no markings, no tail number, and she pulled maneuvers that should have ripped the wings off. He looked at the feed. The F-22's braking formation. Tessa's aircraft holding altitude like a blade held to a throat. Then explain this, he said. She had at least 4 lock warnings flashing in her cockpit. Could have jammed us. Could have bolted. Could have even retaliated. But she didn't. Instead, she spoke one name and went radio silent. That's not hostile behavior. That's a test. Isla sighed and ran a hand through her bun. Or bait. The door opened with a hiss. Major Lorenz stepped inside, her arms folded behind her. Her uniform was spotless, her silver bar glinting under the sterile LED lights. Debrief concluded, she asked without a hint of warmth. Dalton and Park stiffened to attention. Almost, ma'am, Isla said. Still reviewing telemetry inconsistencies and IFF irregularities. Lorenz walked up to the table and stared down at the tablet. I've seen the footage. She shouldn't have been in that airframe. That jet was decommissioned 10 years ago. Serial scrubbed, avionics wiped. She looked up, her eyes narrowing. And yet it flew. Better than anything I've seen in years. And the voice, the one who said Iron Phoenix. She let the silence hang. You recognize it too, Rafe said. Lorenz didn't answer right away. Then, almost reluctantly, she nodded. I heard that call sign once. Kandahar. 2005, a ground team pinned. No air cover. And then this, woman, flying something no one could ID, Came roaring out of a sandstorm and painted the sky with lead. By the time our assets got there, it was over. And she was gone. Just vanished? Park asked, incredulous. Like she never existed, Lorenz said. They stood in silence for a moment, the weight of it sinking in. Then the lights flickered. A knock came at the door. An enlisted technician poked his head in. "Ma'am." Common intercept came through. The AWACS team pulled a clean signal trace. "It's from the rogue jet." Lorenz gestured for him to continue. He stepped forward and placed a slip of paper on the table. The message was short. "I didn't break protocol. Protocol broke me. IP." Isla read it aloud, her voice flat. "IP. Iron Phoenix." Rafe blinked. "She's watching us. She's sending us breadcrumbs," Lorenz said, grabbing the paper. "And I want to know why." Back in the flight hangar, Rafe sat alone in the cockpit of his F-35. The hangar lights bathed the craft in pale gold, making it look more like a monument than a machine. He ran his fingers over the throttle, the same throttle he'd refused to push forward just hours ago. "You had your chance," he thought. "You could have been the one to pull the trigger. Be done with it." Protocol followed. Chain of command obeyed. But something about that voice still echoed. Not just authority, but loss. Regret. Like the last ember of something noble smothered too soon. His comm buzzed. It was Isla. "You and your bird?" she asked. "Yeah." Pull the last 10 seconds of her radio signal. "I got something weird in the spectrum analysis." He did. The static-laced clip played in his ear. "Iron Phoenix. Hold your fire. Friendly. Repeat, Iron Foe." Then he heard it. A faint second voice layered beneath. "Quinn, do not trust command." He froze. "You hear that?" "Yeah," Isla said. Voice matches in her. "It's male. Unidentified." Rafe's skin crawled. "Someone else is involved. Someone who didn't want her back," Isla whispered. There was a beat of silence before Rafe replied. "She's not just a ghost. She's a warning." Meanwhile, in a dusty bunker far off-grid, Tessa Quinn studied a satellite uplink screen. She saw the F-35 footage playing on a 10-second delay. Her old call sign flickered across the bottom of the feed like a memory refused. She touched her temple, then glanced at a photograph taped beside the console. A younger Tessa in uniform. A team behind her. Laughing. Alive. Now they were all gone. Except her. And maybe, one more. The conference room at Falcon Range Air Base pulsed with tension. Maps glowed on the digital wall, tracking the rogue aircraft's last known heading. Red dots blinked across the perimeter. Everyone in the room felt it, something wasn't adding up. Major Tessa Quinn stood off to the side, arms folded, the glow of the screen reflected in her eyes. She wasn't here for politics. She was here because that voice, the one who heard her call sign, trusted her, even when no one else would. Colonel Darren Locke, the lead F-35 squadron commander, paced in front of the screen. Intel now confirms that the aircraft wasn't a drone, nor any model registered with NATO, China, or Russia. This thing's flying under the radar, literally and politically. "Still no ID on propulsion?" asked Captain Marissa Lee, the team's avionics specialist. Locke shook his head. "Moving like a 5th-gen stealth, but with no heat signature. Whatever it is, it's not ours, and it's not flying like it should." A soft chuckle came from the corner. It was Tessa. "You're all looking at the aircraft," she said. "But you're not asking the right question." Locke turned to her. "And what question is that, Major?" She met his eyes. "You ever wonder who's flying it?" Silence. Marissa frowned. "You think it's a pilot?" "I know it is," Tessa said flatly. "No drone pulls off those maneuvers. Whoever's in that cockpit has combat instincts. They juked a lock-on and outmaneuvered two F-35s without breaking a sweat. Lieutenant Jake Monroe spoke up from the table, arms crossed. Okay, let's say you're right. Then what kind of pilot just waltzes into restricted airspace, draws our guns, and then disappears into the clouds? Tessa looked at the map. One who wants to be seen, then vanish. One who's running something deeper than we understand. Locke wasn't convinced. This isn't a spy thriller. We're not dealing with ghosts. You're wrong, Tessa said. You are dealing with ghosts. Someone trained them. Someone gave them that hardware. And someone wants us blind and chasing shadows. She stepped closer to the map and tapped a section no one else was looking at, a cluster of minor radar anomalies across 3 states. You see this pattern? It's a trail. They're mapping our radar weaknesses in real time. Could be weather interference, Monroe offered weakly. Tessa gave a grim smile. Then Mother Nature just learned how to spoof NORAD. That shut the room up. Locke rubbed his temple. So you're saying this mystery pilot is flying a stealth craft we can't detect? They're testing our defenses, and, what? They're working alone? Tessa shook her head. No. This is a probe. There's more coming. The lights dimmed for a moment, brief, but enough to make heads turn. A technician poked his head in. Sir? You might want to see this. We just lost uplink with Fort Halifax. What? Locke's voice rose. Complete blackout. Communications, drone feeds, even satellite recon over the sector. Locke barked, get me satellite eyes from Grid 9. Now. Tessa already knew what they'd see, nothing. Whoever was flying that stealth wasn't just a rogue element. They were part of a coordinated operation. She turned to Marissa. How much classified hardware is housed at Halifax? Marissa swallowed. Level 6 AI avionics, next-gen drone control systems, stuff even I haven't seen specs on. Tessa's jaw tightened. That's their target. The room went cold. Jake leaned back in his chair. You think this is a prelude to something? Tessa's voice was low and deadly calm. No. The prelude already played. We're in Act 1. Locke stared at the screen, then at her. Then what do we do? Tessa looked at the room. You let me fly. Locke hesitated. I know this ghost better than anyone. You'll send fighters, they'll vanish. You'll deploy drones, they'll crash. But me? They already heard my call sign. And they didn't shoot. That means something. Marissa looked up. You think they're trying to send you a message? Tessa nodded. Yes. And I intend to answer it. The runway lights shimmered in the pre-dawn haze, casting long shadows across the tarmac. Tessa Quinn stood at the base of the F-35, helmet under her arm, flight suit zipped tight. The air was electric, charged with the kind of silence only found before history turns. She stared up at the jet. Sleek. Silent. Deadly. But it wasn't the machine she trusted. It was the fight inside her. And the voice on the comm who had recognized her. Iron Phoenix, flight clearance granted, came the voice from the tower. The name hit her like a drumbeat in her chest. For the first time in years, she didn't feel like a ghost, she felt seen. She climbed into the cockpit. Systems flared to life, HUD glowing with purpose. Her gloved fingers ran over the controls like an old pianist meeting her first love again. It had been years since she'd flown in full combat conditions. But instinct doesn't rust. And memory is sharpest when death flies close. Quinn. You don't have to do this. It was Marissa, her voice crackling softly through the comms. I already did this once, Tessa replied. This is just the encore. The canopy sealed. Engines roared. She rolled to the edge of the runway, heart steady. The sky ahead was dark with the promise of danger. Somewhere out there was the ghost jet, an invisible threat powered by betrayal, piloted by someone who knew her call sign. Thrust engaged. Afterburner lit. The jet launched down the runway like a bullet from God. Altitude, 10,000 feet. Tessa checked her systems. No friendly escorts. This was a solo mission. If she failed, there would be no backup. No second chance. Falcon Base, this is Iron Phoenix. Radio check. Loud and clear, Phoenix, Locke responded. You're alone in the sky. ROE is clear, intercept, identify, engage if necessary. Tessa's eyes narrowed. They'll make it necessary. Suddenly, her threat warning system blinked once, then again. Something was pinging her. Not a missile lock. Something more subtle. Then her comms cracked, static. And a voice. Didn't think you'd come back. Tessa froze. Same voice from before. Familiar. Calm. Male. Her heart hammered. Who are you? She said into the mic, steady. Just a shadow. But you knew that. They buried you, Tessa. Same way they buried me. The radar still showed nothing. But the sky felt crowded. Tessa scanned right. And there it was, like smoke against starlight, a black wedge slicing through the clouds, utterly silent. No heat. No radar return. It was real. Your old squad didn't die in that canyon, the voice continued. They were erased. So were you. Now it's time for the world to see what they tried to forget. Tessa's blood ran cold. Her past was back, and it was angry. She flicked to secure comms. Falcon, I have visual. Unknown aircraft, bearing 093. No IFF. No signature. I'm going in. She rolled the jet and descended hard, locking the target manually. The ghost jet twisted. And moved like nothing she'd ever seen. It didn't turn, it pivoted midair, bending physics. Its wings shimmered as if made of light and shadow. Tessa kicked into afterburner, adrenaline coursing. You want to be seen? You picked the wrong sky. She gave chase, weaving through the clouds. The jet darted, reversed, climbed, then doubled back. She was no longer the hunter. It was baiting her. Tessa, the voice said, calm as ever. They'll shoot you down too. The moment you threaten their secrets. Let them try. Suddenly, her cockpit flashed, missile alert. Not from the ghost jet. From the ground. Falcon Base had launched a missile at her. What the hell, Locke? This is Iron Phoenix. Falcon just launched on me. No response. Tessa veered hard left, dropping flares. The missile streaked past, exploding behind her. Systems shook. The comm crackled again. Told you. You're not the enemy to them. You're the evidence. She blinked rapidly, mind racing. Falcon had gone dark. Or worse, compromised. She switched to raw altitude. Climbed past 40,000 feet. The only place she could think. I need to end this. Her hands flew over the controls. She accessed manual payload override, arming the experimental EMP burst built for high-altitude scrambles. It wasn't cleared for deployment. It could fry her own systems too. But it might take the ghost with it. She opened the comms one last time. You knew my call sign. So you know how I fight. Silence. Then, yes. Like a phoenix. You burn. Then you rise. She flipped the final switch. Then let's burn. She released the EMP. The sky lit white. Everything vanished. Tessa drifted. Systems dead. Comms gone. The F-35 falling like a feather made of steel. No radar. No sound. Just blue silence. Then, her backup kicked in. Barely. Enough to slow the fall. Enough to survive. She blacked out just before impact. Hours later. A search team found her jet smoking in the desert. Tessa Quinn unconscious, bruised, but alive. There was no sign of the ghost aircraft. But for the first time, Falcon Base had a full-spectrum radar snapshot of it, just before the EMP hit. Proof. Marissa sat by Tessa's hospital bed, watching her breathe. On the table beside her lay a black box, Tessa's flight recorder. The last thing it captured. Iron Phoenix, engaging. The desert air was still. Long after the last echo of afterburners faded, the hangar at Falcon Ridge sat in solemn silence. The war games were over. The threat neutralized. But something deeper had shifted, within the base, and within every pilot who had heard that haunting call sign, Iron Phoenix. Major Tessa Quinn stood quietly on the edge of the runway, helmet under her arm, wind brushing strands of silver-streaked hair across her face. Her flight suit bore no unit patch. No name tag. Just the old, faded emblem she refused to replace, a phoenix wrapped in lightning, wings half-burnt. Behind her, the base buzzed again. Not with adrenaline or confusion, but with respect. Captain Drew Morgan approached slowly. He looked like he'd aged 10 years in one day, the weight of realization still pressing on him. No more cocky grin. No more smug swagger. Just a pilot who'd seen something, and someone he couldn't explain away. "You saved us all," he said, quietly. Tessa didn't turn. "You saved yourselves. I just reminded you where to look." Drew nodded, lips tight. "They'll reinstate you, you know. Full honors. The brass is already scrambling." Tessa exhaled. "Let them scramble. I don't need a ceremony. Just a clear sky." He hesitated. "Why didn't you tell anyone? Why vanish after all you did?" She turned now, eyes soft but steady. "Because sometimes, Drew, the world isn't ready for what doesn't fit its playbook. They needed ghosts more than heroes. And I became one." There was nothing bitter in her voice, only truth. The kind that echoed. Behind them, Sergeant Rivera wheeled out a fresh set of maintenance gear. Younger pilots were gathering, not with questions, but quiet admiration. Some saluted her openly. Others nodded as if greeting a legend finally made real. Colonel Hendricks stood at a distance, hand behind his back, watching. He didn't interrupt. His look said enough. Inside the command center, someone had printed out the radar snapshot from earlier, the one where the enemy signal vanished just as Iron Phoenix appeared. It now hung on the wall under a sticky note, "Never forget the ones who fly in silence." Later that evening, Tessa stood alone in the flight line's viewing room, overlooking the empty runways. She sipped burnt coffee from a chipped mug with the old Spectre Squadron logo. In the corner sat a box, the contents of her old file. Declassified. Released. Returned. Top of the pile, a letter. Folded, yellowed, signed by the late General Harper. "Tessa, if they ever ask who you are, let them wonder. But if they ever forget, remind them what it means to rise again." She folded it carefully, slid it back into the envelope. Outside, the stars blinked into place. One by one, jets taxied into the dark for night drills. Among them, Drew, now wearing a new patch on his shoulder. The Phoenix. And above them all, the sky opened wide, empty, endless, and waiting. Tessa stepped outside. She didn't need applause. Or medals. Or press conferences. The air itself welcomed her, the way it always had. She looked up. "I'm still here," she whispered to the sky. And the silence answered. "We know. And if you believe legends like Iron Phoenix should never be forgotten, like, subscribe, and share this with someone who still believes in second chances."